I was getting a $185 temporary disability benefit. Social services transferred or fired 3 employees before they found one who would do an intrusive audit greater than anything from the IRS. I said, heck no, and that's when I said I would sue the governor. Then they put a 4th person to back off from this criminal activity. And it should be noted that the Secretary of DHR, which runs this program, that's another huge cabinet level agency in Maryland, he too is no longer at his job now. He's gone to a different position in state government. Okay, so November 2016, DHMH assigned me to Dr. Anthony McCarthy. The pervert Tom Manger had a scheme in place. When I asked about my medical care under state and federal law, the doctor is supposed to tell me everything about my condition because that's the Medicaid law. And also to treat the condition, that's also the Medicaid law. I began to tell this doctor, and this doctor, McCarthy is one straight out of the sewer. And so I began to tell him what my signs and symptoms are. There is audio recording of everything. As I mentioned some of the horrible things, and I was at the point of talking about my brain injury, this piece of expletive said, "That's good." Not only is that a terrible thing to say, it was even worse. He meant, "Oh, that's good," as in, I have the correct points to defeat his lies. He wants me to accept his lies. This pattern repeats with all these people. They want me to accept their lies. My medical condition prevents much of anything, and what I did was steadfastly refuse to accept his lies. I'm sitting down and with a normal tone, and this garbage, he's standing up and yelling at me, "Listen to me," and he's doing it at least 20 times. He was very much out of control. Something common with people with heavy accents, you can't understand what they are saying when they are out of control. Then he calls 911. This is part of a scheme the dispatcher is not in on. He tells 911 that I am out of control because Manger had told him to do this. This little African guy doesn't know any of this stuff. The dispatcher sent about 10 cars. Even a mutual aid call was made to the sheriff's office. All this was about getting a couple of officers to obstruct my medical care. So when cops arrived, pervert Manger's pervert police management called off the other officers who were en route. And then pervert Manger, who only hires despicable cops such as himself, gave the 3 officers the order to obstruct my medical care and to give a no trespass order to all future medical care and all future interactions with government agents. But this shameless pervert Manger could only send this type of messages to his fellow perverts. Montgomery County police officers who have not don't have any integrity, and many seek employment with Manger because these cops in other parts of the country, these cops are from other parts of the country, and they sought employment with the Secret Service, and they failed questions such as to answer if they had sex with animals. So then they get to save face and stay in DC because this pervert Manger hires them. There are also many other perverts with Fairfax County Police, like Manger's hand-picked assistant Bud Walker, who was convicted of child porn. But there was one cop on the scene with integrity, and that was Deputy John Lee. Manger didn't dare send his messages to this cop. So not only did he arrive, but he did all the right things. Manger's perverts had their backs turned to me, and that's not what you do when you encounter someone who is supposedly out of control. So Lee, he was cautious and apprehensive. He also talked to me, and when I said briefly that the type of crime done against me, he gave me his business card and said I should come to his office and make a report. So now we have a correct standard to compare Manger's officers against. Manger's officers told me, "You're not in any trouble." This is like the old civil rights problems in the South. If you're black and you don't complain about the landfill being put in your neighborhood and you don't try to move into the white neighborhood, hey, you're not in any trouble either. At least not with the authorities. But you are certainly in trouble with the carcinogens from the dump. The police and not the sheriff who has the budget to handle this crime done to me. And as suspicions about Manger grew, I wanted to have the matter resolved, but I also wanted to see what he's up to. A few days later, I went to the Bethesda district station and wanted to report offenses to a beat officer, and only went to the police station for, I just wanted to see just a regular officer, and I only went there to the actual police station for logistical and convenience factors. Management, though, there would not permit such a reporting. It delegated Officer Mark Julian, long service in administration, who agreed that he was speaking for the top of the chain of command. Only a short talk in the lobby was permitted. He refused to physically touch the envelope containing the evidence. He stated all false laws, excuses, and lies. And there was great inconsistency between the lies. One big lie he told me from Manger was that when an individual goes for a medical service, anyone can come down and do anything to them. The injuries, then he says, and all these injuries can only be evaluated as malpractice, never as a crime, and never as the analogous civil intentional tort of battery. Now, what prosecutor Chad Grunander of Utah said in closing statements about Dr. Martin McNeil, he says Dr. Martin McNeil murdered his wife, Michelle. Her death was not the result of an accident, and it certainly was not the result of a heart condition. The defendant carried out a cold and calculated plan to murder his wife. He relied on his knowledge and experience as a doctor and also as a lawyer to accomplish this. Then we have Deputy DA John Niederman of California in his statements. A lab coat and stethoscope are no shield. But then in the same case, Tracy Green, the defense attorney, hey, they actually said the same thing that Montgomery County Police said. Although the state medical board has found Dr. Seng in violation of some standards, that didn't mean her client's actions were criminal. That's what medical malpractice cases are all about. Am I wrong? I thought that police do the opposite job of defense attorneys, but I also thought that the police do the opposite job of sex offenders and murderers. Then Judge Michael Pastor, presiding judge in the case of Conrad Murray and Michael Jackson's death. This is not a crime involving a mistaken judgment. It's not about the administration of drugs per se. The offense charged and proven in this case is a homicide. The reckless conduct in this case poses a demonstrable risk to the safety of the public if Dr. Murray remains out of custody on bond. David Walgreen, the prosecutor's statement about the defense expert witness. What Dr. White came in and did was sad for science and sad for truth-seeking. Then prosecutors in Texas said, Dr. Christopher Dunch's hands amounted to a deadly weapon. So, now when I filed, now Social Security and DDS, the mail-in agency, deliberately kept out the facts. The next step of standard practice. So Social Security and DDS deliberately kept out the facts. The next step of the standard Social Security and disability process is of Social Security itself taking over. There is a hearing before an administrative law judge. I requested all my due process rights, submitting evidence to the hearing office, submitting interrogatories for the state agencies, requesting subpoenas for documents and witnesses. The trick they used is so overt and pathetic. I phoned and asked if they received my submission. The post office confirmed delivery, but the Social Security hearing office in Washington, D.C. lied that it was not received. When I asked for a continuance on March 2017, the federal employee who refused to give me her name transferred me to the voicemail of another employee named Natalie. I called 8 times, leaving messages, requesting continuance and explanation of what malicious acts they are engaging in, and for them to give me their full names. Natalie picked up one of the calls, and when I said my name, she hung up. All the while, Natalie is deliberately playing phone tag. She's calling me many hours after my last call, and she's blocking the caller ID so it shows up anonymous. And most people don't pick up calls labeled this way. I have all this recorded. Natalie's messages tell me that she cannot understand it's a. So basically, it's most of the story, and I also state all my injuries, or at least that non-exhaustive list of my injuries.